Kansas City to New York City, from planet Earth to extraterrestrial life in space, a podcast with no equal, engaged in unconventional warfare through your speakers and headphones. This is a show about embracing the suck, conquering your demons, and finding God in the face of adversity. Chris Tonto Peranto.
Switch is on. Motherfucker, I'm going to shoot you in the face.
Ian Scotto.
You know, Ian and I have been dating for a long time.
You are now tuned into the Battleline Podcast.
The switch is on indeed. Battleline Podcast, Ian Scotto here, and you see the title. This is our Best of Marine Corps special. Over the years of doing this podcast, we have had so many Marines on. I actually think if you dig in the archives, we may have had more Marines on this show than any other branch of service. That would be my guess. So this being the Best of Marines show, there may be people you expect to hear on here and you're not going to because there was so much to choose from. I could probably do 4 or 5 Best of Marine episodes. And we're actually coming up on June 6th, which is not only D-Day, but it's also the day that we lost my great friend, Chris's great friend, and Marine Corps veteran, Drew St. Dwyer. So we're going to do something special for him next episode, but with this being the Best of Marines special, and you guys hearing this just a couple of days before that significant date, rest in peace to Drew Dwyer. We got plenty you guys are going to love here, but before we get into anything, we are big believers in CBD here, but not the crap that you find much of the time that's made in China, that God knows what is in it. We really only use one brand, and that's Ned, because we trust Ned. Ned is all grown in Colorado, and if you're someone who is a little hesitant to try CBD, I have to tell you, it is a game changer. If you listen to the show, I am someone who does not get high. I don't even drink alcohol. So if you're worried about any of that stuff, this is not like that Delta 8 form of CBD that's going to get you high. It's nothing like that. It is going to relax you, and you're going to get a great night's sleep. That's really what I get out of it. It's helping people treat post-traumatic stress, but then it's even being shown in studies that there may be some benefits to more serious issues like Alzheimer's. So I really would recommend checking out any of the full-spectrum hemp supplements from our great friends at Ned. Yes, if you're someone who has a job or you're being drug tested or something, you may have to stay away from it. And there's plenty of other great products on the website at Ned that you can get that aren't full spectrum hemp products. But for the rest of you, like me, who don't have to be drug tested, but don't want to get high, don't want to use marijuana or any of that, I would really recommend CBD. If you haven't tried anything from Ned yet, I don't know what you're waiting for, because they give great deals out to our audience if you're a first-time customer. That's helloned.com/Battleline, or add the code Battleline at checkout, and you're going to get a great deal just for being a listener of this show. HELLONED.com/Battleline, helloned.com/Battleline. Now, without further ado, we're going to get right into it. This is a name many of you are familiar with. None other than Rudy Reyes, and a lot of you know him from Generation Kill on HBO, his more recent stuff, but you may not know some of the backstory of him becoming a Marine. That's what this is. Check it out. How did your journey, I guess you'd say, into special operations start? Are you one of those kids who, from the moment you were, in first grade, said, "I want to be a Marine"? Or how did it all start?
A lot of people don't know. They know the Generation Kill Rudy on. They know that. Yeah. But they don't know basic training Rudy. I mean, Antonio, your buddy Antonio, when he was GRS, what he told me a little bit, but that was when he was doing the GRS thing. But I think our listeners, because nobody's really heard that about that, and I think they want to know, especially our young. We get a lot of young listeners that want to join. Yeah. And man, I love them to hear that story of where you started, what decided, and then a basic training story, dude, or your whole basic training. Nobody knows that, man.
Well, okay. I have two fathers. The man that gave me his name, Rudy Reyes Sr. He was a devil dog in Vietnam, and he's passed. And then my biological father was also a Marine, and his name's Hector or Gustavo de la Llata, and a Spaniard. He came from a wealthy family, and he was running from a tyrant father in Mexico. They're land barons. I just found my family for the first time after the success of Generation Kill. I had some money and confidence that maybe I'd be received because I never met my biological father. I went to meet the De La Llatas, and my sister's a medical doctor. I got a young, beautiful sister. Wow. My cousin is the district attorney of Austin, Texas. His father is a professor of Latin and psychology at the University of Texas. These are pretty intelligent, powerful people. But my father, but they're all Mexican by way of Spain. They're Chris, they're just as fair as us, or even more fair than we are, right?
Well, they're Basque. You get the Spaniards that are Basque, like my father. He looks Italian. He's so.
For sure. That's why you and I get compliments oftentimes that I look like you, or that we're brothers. I do, right?
Well, it's because of our sexiness, though.
Okay, yes.
Haters gonna hate.
It comes from Spain.
It's the olive skin. It's this. It doesn't age.
We don't age. We age very like fine wine, baby. Like fine wine. So I grew up kind of tough. My father, both fathers, had some pretty extreme PTSD. De La Llata did 2 tours. My real father is Rudy Reyes. He after he came back, he immediately got into law enforcement. Actually, no, I think first he was scrubbing out grain elevators.
Wow.
Hard work on the border, and they're all from the border of Texas and Mexico.
Yep.
My mother was young and beautiful, but a traditional Mexican woman, meaning you cook, you clean, you look good for your man, and that's it. Yep. So it didn't work out. And my mother got involved in it was the early 70s, got involved in the drug world. And then we started moving around, myself and my 2 brothers, and slowly but surely we were left here, left there. And ultimately we were raised in the Omaha Home for Boys.
I didn't know that. No shit.
52nd and 8th.
Here in Omaha. No, I live right by it. It's right. Okay, it's right down the road. It's still 52nd and 8th.
It's doing really good. I was there. Yeah. I was the keynote speaker for the 100-year anniversary. And
wow. No shit. That's awesome.
Thank you to Omaha Home for Boys. They gave me a wrestling program. They gave me weights. They gave me food. Yep. We were very sick when we got there. We all had worms and lice. I had hepatitis because we were living in filth. Yeah. We were living in third world African filth. Right? Wow. So we were taken by the state. We got medicine. We got haircuts. We got pride. And I excelled as a wrestler, and that's what drove me into continue to do sports and martial arts. But when I was a little boy, I saw First Blood. When I saw John Rambo, I just knew then. Do you remember when he unscrews his knife and he's using the compass and immediately goes into E&E and then sear and I thought, this is an example of a man that can overcome and is capable. Because we were so poor and thrown around foster care and here or there, I didn't feel capable at all. I didn't know where my next meal was going to be. There was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of neglect. So immediately I connected to John Rambo, and always in my mind. And of course I read comic books, and I was an athlete. So I built my body and my mind to be strong. And I was a kickboxer and a martial artist. But I was not mean yet, brother. I was not mean. You don't become really hard to war and military. But the word on the street was that we had to go fight in Kosovo. And I saw a documentary of orphans in Kosovo, in the sniper alleys. All the adults are dead, and the little kids are fast enough to not get killed. And they're hiding out in this old warehouse with a few civilians and NGOs trying to freaking take care of these kids in the middle of war. Yeah. And right there, it was an emotional hit to me because it brought me back to my childhood.
Okay.
I said, I am an able-bodied man, and we're going to go fight Kosovo. I'm going to do my duty.
So you're 17 or 18 at that point? Were you getting out of high school?
26.
Oh, you're 20. Okay, shit.
I was already a kickboxer.
Wow. Okay.
I was heavy into my Zen Buddhism. I was vegetarian. I imagined I would continue to compete kickboxing until I got so old that I would teach. I just loved doing martial arts and having a simple life. And I was an illustrator. I would work different commercial art jobs. But that emotion of those kids, and then the idea that we got to go fight for people that can't fight for themselves. I thought of my dad, and I joined the Marine Corps as an infantryman. And no good deed goes unpunished in the Marine Corps. So I was
yeah, that's true. And you're an old fart, because I went through 25. You and
I wish we could be 26 again.
I know.
I look at 26-year-old now, and I'm like, look at this kid. Look at this kid. And so I go there, and I'm the honor grad in Ironman boot camp, and then SOI. And again, so I got meritoriously promoted.
Awesome.
So they put me on guard duty. I'm the best of like speaking 600 guys, and now I'm running guard duty. And if any of you know about the Marine Corps, there's Camp Horno and Camp Pendleton. They're the most disciplined, anal retentive, freaking haterade. Swear the fuck away. If you do not have a freaking high and tight or horseshoe, you're out of regs. You better have that freaking. Your shave needs to be so clean every day. You better have some blood on your face. And I mean, it's squared away. And by the way, and that's where Anthony's from. That's where Sparrow.
Yep.
That's where Sparrow's squared the fuck away. Yep. Also, very little creativity, and life sucks. So they put me there on guard duty to do relief and guard relief and run the guard shack. I'm there for about 2 months in a squad bay. They got a pull-up bar, and I'm doing calisthenics. I'm not even seeing the sun because there's always some young Marine running to freaking Mexico or something. We got to go get the guys. I mean, brother, it was rough. And I thought to myself when I looked in the mirror at my freaking super high and tight haircut, I'm like, another fine mess you got yourself into this time, Rudy Reyes. This is how it's going to be for 4 years at least. Get used to it. And I said, very well. Yeah, remember, we used to have the tan from our freaking rolled up sleeves here and a tan here down and white all around.
White.
Yep. So I did so well. The corporal of the guard, recon was coming through Horno to run their in-dock.
Okay.
He put my name up, and I didn't know how to swim. Named. Yeah, everybody thought it. All the young Marines thought, they still called me Guide because I was the guide at boot camp. Guide can do it. Guide's going to go recon. I didn't know how to swim. I was embarrassed. I hid in the squad bay in the back of the barracks. And with a big leap of faith, I said, fuck, everybody believes I can do it. I'm scared to death. I'm going to give it everything I got, but I'm probably going to drown in the swimming pool. And I was so dominant, Chris. I was so dominant on the run. 300 PFT, so my pulls and crunches, and my run was 17:20.
Yeah, that's great.
Then we went through the O course 3 times, and then we're doing exercises and boots and utes. And every time you go through it, of the 3, the slowest is done. The slowest is out. Now we put on our freaking 70-pound ruck, and it's an 8-mile run, trail run, right?
Yep.
To the pool. I was so dominant. I got to the pool 20 or 30 minutes before the next guy. And these are seasoned grunts. These are seasoned snipers. Yeah. These are brothers that been to Ranger and got their jump. They're trying to get to recon. Been in the Corps 8 years or so. And I've been in the Corps 5 months.
Yeah.
And they can all tell I'm boot as fuck. They called me forever Lance Corporal Happy to be here because I was. So standing by, having my soul freaking ripped apart, looking at the water and looking at the real swimmers.
How far do you have to swim for the end?
Oh my gosh, the abandoned ship drill off the top. with your boots and utes and rifle, and then tread freaking 20 minutes. I didn't know how to tread. I was kicking this way. I was kicking like this. Ah! And then grab the rubber brick. And it's got to stay out of the water.
Yeah.
Except, brother, I was under the water the whole time. I didn't know what I was doing. So, and then you're a 500-meter time swim in camis. I never swam in camis. Playing around in a freaking swimming pool and looking at chicks is not swimming.
No.
All right. So I've never really been swimming.
And you got your boots and utes, and people realize how much that weighs a lot when it gets wet.
Have mercy.
It weighs you down.
And stats like us were muscular and lean. I had no buoyancy.
No buoyancy.
I kept trying to go harder, which means I'm going slower.
This means you're tightening up, and when you tighten up in the pool, you start to sink even more.
Oh, brother, at that time, brother, it was the hardest thing I'd ever been through. I've been through survival situations on the street since a kid. I've been through the boys' home and fighting. I've been through so much, but at that moment, that water was so difficult. And after we do all of that stuff, we have to tread for half an hour. And that's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life at that time. And then you got the recon guys and fins and freaking masks sharking you.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to cramp everywhere. I'm cramping. And then they got a fire hose that they're hitting you and you're trying to breathe up top. So we finally get out of that nightmare. I survived. And a lot of guys, brother, I swear to you, Ian, Chris, there were some Marines holding so hard onto the side of the pool. I swear their fucking fingerprints are in the water to this day. They would not get the sharks were trying to get them back in the water. No, bro. Like one of Dante Inferno's planes of hell, bro.
But it does that water does that to you. If you can't stay relaxed in that shit and you start to sink and then you take that first gulp, if you don't tell yourself, okay, I'm going to have to drink water, and you take that first gulp thinking that's how I got through all my swimming, the pre-scuba, the water infiltration. I hated it, but I'm going to have to drink water. If I was just drinking water, just drink the water.
I'm here to drink water.
That's
you go with that attitude. Absolutely. Brother, I was new at it. Even the water in my face, I was freaking out. Somehow I make it through the water. I get out. Now we got to do a 6-7 mile run, but we're slick. I whoop all that ass again.
Yeah.
So, imagine when we were instructors, Chris, when we were instructors, we saw potential in our students. And if they had the raw material, even if they didn't know what the hell they were doing, we know that they are going to be with training an asset to our unit.
Yeah.
So my cadre and leader of the whole thing, his name is Roger Sparks.
Okay.
And he was a recon daddy and a ranger the old days. And he then went to pararescue, I think at 33 or 34. Wow. And their in-dock program is nothing but Olympian water.
No, it's tough. People think pararescue. We give the PJs and this Air Force Circle, but they have. I'll be out of everybody. I think, and I have their booklet. I should train on their booklet because I thought it was so tough. The pararescue combat. I think they have the toughest in-dock out of all.
I agree, brother.
I have to say,
it's an Olympian swim program.
It is,
and so for that reason, it's mostly 18 to 25-year-old Olympian swimmers that do it. Roger went in there already as a grunt, as a ranger, and recon daddy. 33, which is ancient, 34, and he was the honor grad.
Wow,
these records, and now Roger is he's the highest decorated pararescueman of all time. He fought a fight in Afghanistan for the 101st Airborne and went in there and shot and saved 8 brothers.
We got to get him on the show.
Him, he's spiritual. He
that's awesome.
Created me, and he's eating an apple as I'm coming across the freaking finish line, and he always says, "Hey, Big Daddy, good effort." Everything, absolutely a savage, and he's 6'10" or 6'11" with nothing but chest.
Yeah.
Just chest, chin, and chest. Best chest in the West, Big Daddy. You're gonna love this, man. You're gonna see so much of him in me when you meet the man. And now he's my my teammate on Force Blue, the real tall PJ.
Okay, yeah. I've seen pictures when you post. Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha. I'll tie you guys in. So BRC, which is the East Coast or West Coast school, was all slotted up. So I had to go to the East Coast, which is Amphibious Reconnaissance School. It was the first one. It was old. It used to be a recondo school, and both Army and Recon used to go there back in the Vietnam era. And I go to school there 3.5 months, being the boot of the boot. I had no field prep, Chris. I had to learn everything there. All my knots, everything. I had to learn everything. Patrol, everything. And it was a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
All you young men out there that want to be commandos, all you young men out there, let me tell you what. Number one is you're never going to be able to prepare enough. You're never going to be able to prepare enough. It's going to push you further than you've ever imagined. And some things that you can't comprehend yet will test you so far. It will take everything you have. But the bottom line is be extremely physically fit.
Yeah.
And that means mentally fit. If you're extremely physically fit, sometimes your body will overcome things because your brain is gone.
Yeah.
Your brain is going to be gone sometimes when you I think you all do a similar thing, a patrol phase where you guys are up for a week running missions. Not just playing games, not just doing PT. I mean running missions. During the day, you're planning in a swamp. We do it, and then everybody's on a knee with the freaking ruck on their back, and then we're executing in the evening, and then a final E&E after that, and getting freaking tear gas. And there's going to be times when you're going to see Native Americans.
I used to see monkeys in the trees from The Wizard of Oz. I used to see the Wizard of Oz monkeys at night, and I'm like,
things. I had our Native American brothers, my spirit guides, and they were helping me patrol through the woods. And then sometimes I saw the aliens come down.
And by the way, this is the norm because it's like I've heard Nick Irving talk about the same thing.
It is. Because the
brain checks out. The brain checks out.
We got so much bandwidth. But if you're extremely physically fit, your body's got a brain too. It does not want to die. Yeah. And if your character is correct, you will not quit. As long as you will not quit, and your body won't die because it wants to live, and you're strong, you're gonna make it. So stay physically fit.
Spot on. That is spot. I gotta tell you, your brain will always quit before your body. And that's happened so many times. If your character
is good, if your heart is there and you will not give up, then that's fine. You don't even need your brain for this shit for a while, right?
You don't. That's like a brain check. But it's so true.
And so when Tony met me, Espera, we were on the Mew together.
Okay.
In 2001, 15th Mew. We didn't know the towers were going to get hit, but we were doing some counter drug and counter poaching stuff with the Australians in Darwin, and then going to do a humanitarian mission in Timor. And the towers were hit. And it's a battalion of grunts. Espera, I think, was a squad leader.
Okay.
I was a junior man in my 5-man team. Platoon of recon men, a platoon of SEALs, so that's 20 men each. A battalion of grunts, probably altogether 200. And then we had a MAGTAF, Marine Air Ground Task Force. So we had rotary wing, jump jets, and arty. And brother, the freaking sirens start going off on the mess deck. I'm watching the second tower get hit. And, a lot of our sailors are from New York, our Puerto Ricans, our Iraq brothers and Puerto Rican brothers. A lot of sailors out of New York, right? Dominican. And I'm seeing the brothers breaking down and crying. In my mind, again, that brain thing, all I can think of, it must be Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, because this doesn't happen to them.
Yeah.
Even though it was obvious they were the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
But my brain, I was just thinking, like in slow motion, I was praying for the Jews, and then it starts coming, starts really stepping in, and then over the loudspeaker, they're calling for recon and SEALs to get to the well deck, so we can start drawing our bang and our fills for our radios, and then so we all went to go fight in Pakistan first, and those grunts, Espera and his platoon commander, Nathan Fick, they were our grunts. Nathan Fick would later become my platoon commander, our platoon commander for the Iraq. Amazing man. Those grunts live hard, brother. And we can't say enough about our Army and Marine Corps infantry. They live so hard, and we're blessed that we had we excelled in the time we did, so we could go to shit hot units with great assets and great responsibilities, so that we really lived big boy rules. And it was almost, we were living like warlords. Of course, we always respected the team and the platoon, but they lived in spider holes in 120-degree heat, and we're rocking and rolling, doing counter recon, counter sniper patrols in Pakistan. This place called Jacobabad, where the sewage table was higher than the land, because this is the airstrips. We had to bring everybody in. To get all our assets to jump jet over and hit Afghanistan and then take Kandahar. So these men are living in sewage, in human excrement that's seeping into the holes. They never complain. They never complain. Thick is walking his lines every day, every night, making sure everybody's tied in. They're always in full flat Kevlar.
No, they're in full rattle battle. Always full rattle battle.
Always, brother. And then here we are. We got longer hair. We're living in a nice hangar. We get to clean ourselves now and again. These brothers did not, and we made close friends with a few of them that later became recon Marines. Some of them now just retired out of CAG. So
wow.
They went on to do other things, either in the Green Berets or pararescue, and they were all just strong infantrymen.
Now, that was Rudy Reyes from way back on episode 85. A lot of you guys are new listeners, and you could dig in the archive. We have so much. I mean, we're up to, what episode are we even on? Now, I got to check. We're up to 200-something. Yeah, we're on episode 242 here. So if you're a new listener, there are hours upon hours that you could listen to us just run our mouths, but also some of our great guests. All right, before we get into this next one, I want to remind you guys that every show we do is sponsored by our great friends at Fort Scott Munitions. Fort Scott Munitions is a manufacturer of multi-federal patented solid copper and brass CNC spun ammunition. It's designed to tumble upon impact, TUI, their trademark, in soft tissue, leaving devastating wound channels for faster bleed out and quicker incapacitation. This ammunition was originally developed to innovate and improve on the standard of military-grade ammunition design. It was found that not only did the TUI ammunition outperform competitors in the self-defense industry, but it quickly became apparent that it would be a top contender for hunters alike. With the ammunition being CNC spun, the tolerances are some of the tightest on the market, ensuring that you receive the same results with each pull of the trigger. Chris actually just did a course in Fort Scott, Kansas, where, of course, they were shooting with Fort Scott Munitions. I personally just got back from Vegas, and I didn't really mention that in the intro, for my other job with Nidus at Identiverse, an identity management conference. So that's why we ran these two best ofs, and hopefully you're enjoying them. But back to this, of course, you could use the exclusive promo code Battleline, and you'll get 15% off your order, only available to listeners of the Battleline podcast. Once again, that's FSM.com. Simple as that. FSM, as in FortScottMunitions.com. Use the promo code Battleline for 15% off. Fort Scott Munitions is a proud supporter of Chris Peranto, Battleline Tactical, and the Battleline Podcast. Probably one of my favorite guests we've had on is Todd Opalski, not only a Marine, but a member of, and I say in air fingers quotes, the unit, because those guys don't like to reveal what that means, or there's a special missions unit. I think most of this audience knows that refers to Delta Force. I'm allowed to say it because I am not a member of Delta Force. I'm not going to go stolen valor on you guys. This is Todd Opalski.
Senior year in high school, I had some options. Well, not really. I wanted to go to further my education into higher technical school because I went to a trade school. I come from a line of carpenters. But my parents didn't want me to take carpentry because at the time there really was no money in carpentry.
Okay.
My brother was a carpenter, and all the trades people that were making money, the plumbers, electricians, air conditioning repair people, carpentry, there wasn't a lot of money in that. And so I took drafting, machine drafting.
Wow.
Senior year, I was lifting weights, bodybuilding. I got into lifting weights sophomore year.
And competitive bodybuilding, right? As a natural competitor.
Yeah.
Competitor. Yeah, there were a lot of meatheads where I went to school. There were deer heads. It was technical. Education was not an emphasis. It was just jacking steel, being as big and as tough as you can be. That was it. Yep. And me being the smaller guy, I had to lift the most amount of weight, just be a big guy. So one day, it was in the 80s I grew up, time of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan, Muscle and Fitness, Soldier of Fortune. You're just around this testosterone, you're seeing it. And it feeds you. In my neighborhood, we were pretty, to today's standards, I grew up in a violent neighborhood, I guess. We played football. Like tackle football
on the street,
on the street. It started out as Nerf football, but then you end up tackling each other and people banged up. And but it was game on. Yeah. So I was competing as a bodybuilder, hitting the gym every day, after school, going to work at night. And one day, when on my way to the gym, I walked by the recruiter's office. Lo and behold, the recruiter's office was right next to the fitness center, right next to the gym I belonged to. And I never paid it any attention. I'd walk by it every day. Maybe 2 years since I was a sophomore. I'm a junior now. And I'm walking by this recruiter's office, never paid it any attention. And I saw this poster, caught a glimpse of this poster, and two meatheads coming out of the ocean with twin 80s, scuba tanks, and these mini machine guns in their chest.
Yeah, you fell for it, man. You fell for it right there, just like the rest of us.
They suckered me. And it had one word: Marines. Mouth open. I'm licking the window. I reach for the doorknob. I walk by the Army's. It was a long hallway.
Okay.
Long hallway. The Army was right up front. Probably the most elegant office. Huge office. And then the Air Force. Nice office. Navy. Nice office. And the Marine Corps at the end of this hallway.
They had the janitor's closet. Yeah, they had the janitor's closet.
Janitor's closet. A field desk.
That's hilarious.
And a couple foldable chairs, and the recruiter was in there. And it was a black guy, black recruiter, staff sergeant. And he was ripped. The guy was just a Hulk. He was sitting at his desk, and he was pretty intimidating. And he said, "What do you want? Why are you here?" And I asked him about the poster in the window, and he said, "Oh, shit, you can't. That Marine Recon. That's the baddest mofos of the most elite fighting organization in the world." I'm like, "Sign me up. Sign me up right now. I want to be those guys.
Sign me up right now, man. That's
right now." So that's how it went down. I took a test, handwritten test.
With the ASVAB, right?
Whatever it was.
What did you have to take? I don't know. Maybe in the Marines, maybe he threw you something else. Maybe y'all had to do something.
He threw me some math paper and some crayons. Simple math. And I went home, and my parents had gotten home from work at this time. And my mom was in the kitchen. My dad was in the backyard reading the newspaper. That's what he every day he'd come home from work, and he'd go in the back, on the back stoop, read the newspaper. And I told my mom, I said, "Hey, I'm joining the Marines." And she looked at me with like, "What just happened?" This is the last thing we ever had thought. And she started to tear up. My mom was unemotional, zero emotion. I never saw her cry. She never complained, whined. She just made it happen, total alpha female. And it was the first time I saw her get teary-eyed and like, she's going to lose her son to war. I mean, she grew up in a time of Great Depression, saw World War II, saw Korea, saw Vietnam. You know, my brother grew up in the 60s. He dodged Vietnam. He went up north. And we talked about that. And, you know, that was his choice. And I don't hold that against him. But my mom looked at me. She's like, well, go tell your father what you just did. So I went back and I told my father, and he looked at me and he said, you damn stupid kid. You know, what are you thinking? Apparently you're not. And he said, whatever you do, I'll give you one piece of advice. Do not go infantry.
And so that's where you're going. No, as a parent, he mind fucked you there too. He wanted you to go infantry. That's why he said, don't go infantry.
Don't go infantry. But he did mean that with his heart and soul, because I you know, he suffered a lot. And at the time growing up, I didn't realize it, but because people of that generation, they hid their feelings. There was weakness. And he showed me, he never talked about World War II, but I know he experienced a lot of things and he carried that with him back, but he dealt with it. So I went in the Corps and Marine boot camp, not knowing really what I was getting into, you know, just from what I saw on Heartbreak Ridge, you know, Gunny Highway. Recon. I knew I wanted recon, the elite of the elite. I wanted to scuba dive, jump out of airplanes, travel the world. We all, as kids, we always played Army, Cowboys and Indians. We were some pretty active kids, but I really didn't realize what I was getting into. So went through Marine boot camp, and Marine boot camp was an amazing experience. I think the Marine Corps from day one, and I can't speak with the other services. Sure. You know, I've been to U.S. Army Ranger School, which for me is the best school I've ever been to, education-wise. Yeah. It's the number one school I've ever been to. But Marine Corps boot camp, from the get-go, day one, they teach you leadership and teamwork. They instill into you how to be a leader. They give you classes on how to be a leader. They give you these principles, these traits, JJ, did, tie, buckle. There's an acronym for everything. And you memorize these things. And I thought it was great because they break you down. They shave your head. They make you all look alike. And you're all recruits at that point. You're not a Marine until you graduate. So you're just a number. I was roster number 42, recruit, and we were all Marines. We had one color. Yeah. We were all green and everyone was equal, and they teach you leadership and teamwork and relying on one another. And then all those foundational skills. And they do an amazing process. And I think, and I am a little bit biased towards Marine boot camp, then you graduate, and that's when you earn the title United States Marine. And you're like just pissing vinegar. You're ready to take on the world. Iwo Jima, you name it. You're there. Yeah. Awesome. Everyone is just highly motivated. And then you go on to your secondary school. And in my case, it was infantry school. And that was another couple months. And I had an opportunity during the MOS training, infantry training school. The recon recruiter came. They came to the infantry, basic infantry course, and they were looking for candidates to screen for recon. And I knew I wanted to go to recon. So I signed up, and the test, the indoctrination, was on a weekend. It was on a Saturday. So that was one step. They held it on a Saturday, which I thought was pretty smart, because during infantry training school, you get weekends off.
Yeah.
So if you show up on Saturday, that's kind of like, okay, this guy's got a little bit of, heart in him. He could be on Liberty right now, drinking and chasing skirt. But I went to the in-dock, and it was early morning, and they picked us up in a bus, took us to Mainside, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, to the Force Recon headquarters, went into the office, and there was a staff sergeant sitting behind the desk, and we were all in line, and I was one of the first ones to go in. And I went in, and he had my record book, and he's looking at it, and there's not much in my record book at that time. I did graduate top of my class in recruit training, so I had that going for me, but whatever. But he's looking at my record book, my medical book, and I'm there in front of him, and he was a squared away guy. He was an E6.
Sure.
His uniform was well dressed, spit shine boots at the time. We still had spit shines at the time. The guy was just very articulate, very professional, just different from the Marines I'd met up until that point. I knew he was a professional. Like, this guy knows his stuff.
Yeah.
It's how he was carrying himself.
So he wasn't screaming. He wasn't screaming and yell at you, but
not
you knew
screaming.
But
just
he didn't have to, because his demeanor. Yeah, his demeanor was intimidating enough.
I was uncomfortable because that was the first time I'm in this environment.
Yep.
I'm like, whoa, he's not yelling at me. But his first, he looked at my record book and he asked me, he's like, all right, here's your first question. How do you spell reconnaissance?
Oh, shit.
And it's not recon. I want the full version. And I'm there at attention or parade rest. I think I'm at parade rest at this time, somewhat at ease. I wasn't at ease. But
Yeah.
my eyeballs are still looking at his chest. I'm like, R, E, C. Is there another C?
How many?
I just know recon. I didn't know it was reconnaissance. And again, academics was not impressed upon me growing up. It was just hard skills. Up until this point, it's just been hard skills. Hammering, cutting wood, throwing dirt bombs at one another.
Dirt bomb.
Spelling USMC. So I got to recon, and I spelled it wrong. And he said, all right, you failed. Get back on the bus. And I gazed at him, mouth and eye. He's like, one of the basic things we need here is a trained observer. That's what we're looking for. Obviously, you're not going to make a well-trained observer because it's written right above me. It was like,
holy shit, that's awesome.
I'm 19 years old, and I've been dreaming of this for 3 years, being recon. So I went back to the bus and licking my wounds. And an hour later, he comes back out and he says, all right, you get another chance. Get in here.
Great story from Tadapowski. If you want to dig back in the archives for that one, that is episode 149. If any of you guys are big gun guys, 2A YouTube people, then you are probably familiar with Guns Out TV, hosted by John Keyes and Shermichael Singleton, who you also see on Shermichael, you see on the news all the time. He does a lot more. You would never know he's a big gun guy if you watch his mainstream news appearances. But he is a part of Guns Out TV, if you're familiar with them. And we had John Keyes on the show, who is not only a firearms enthusiast, but a Marine. Of course, that's why he's a part of this episode. And he had a great story for us that you're going to love of perseverance. Check it out.
This is a big military listening podcast. What give us that growing up a bit, just so people know who you are. Give us a little perspective, and then why you joined the military and the Marine Corps, and then experience in there. So
great. I don't really speak about that too much. So whenever I get a chance to, I don't shy away from it. But yeah, I think the military was it was a very pivotal part of my maturation as a young adult. I decided to leave the house. Listen, I signed up for the delayed entry program at 16. So I knew I was going in the Marine Corps. I was in ROTC for 4 years in high school, from a freshman to a senior. And I had reached the highest rank I could possibly reach in ROTC. Sure. I was the commander of the drill team. So I just really took to the discipline and organization aspect of what the military could offer. And I was from a small town, Opelousas, Louisiana. I mean, there wasn't much to see. There wasn't really much to experience there. And I just knew that there was a great big world, and I had no idea how to conquer that. I mean, think about how overwhelming that can be for a 16-year-old. So when the military offered, it was like, hey, man, free room and board. You get the best shape of your life, and you could travel and see the world. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. You're hiring me to go on vacation. That's what it sounds like. But obviously, you know, we know what else came with that, right?
Sure.
So, and I don't blame my recruiter. I really don't blame my recruiter, because I was low-hanging fruit. I was like, I would have signed myself, you know? So it's all good. So yeah, I joined the Marine Corps at 17. Like, actually went to boot camp at 17, turned 18 in boot camp. And just from there, you know, I went to Marine Wing Support Squadron 273 in Beaufort, South Carolina. From there, I went to Okinawa, Japan, 3rd Marine Division. So I go from a Wing Support Squadron to 3rd Marine Division, 3rd Mar Div, Okinawa, Japan. And that was a big change, because it went from kind of like a laid-back wing environment to, you know, hardcore. This is 3rd Marine Division. I mean, we're out there training in Hanson and Schwab and going on you know, deployments and whatnot. So it got very high octane, like really, really quick. And did
you enjoy that trend? I mean, were you ready? Like, hey, this is what I signed up for when you got there, or was it, damn, this sucks, I want to go back to Beaufort?
No, I actually enjoyed it. I was fascinated by being overseas, first and foremost. I mean, I was just absolutely fascinated to know I was in another country. And so then when that wore off, that's when I actually embraced the idea of being at such a notable unit, a notable duty station. And I just embraced everything that came with it. I was the sergeant of the guard during 9/11. 9/11 hit. It was actually a monsoon I lived on base housing at the time. And there was a monsoon. We were all like just bunkered in. Next thing you know, I was called to be the sergeant of the guard. So I literally had to get all my gear. And then I'm at the headquarters. I'm hopping in a Humvee. We're doing perimeter checks literally every hour. It was a 24-hour duty for the next, I don't know how many months. So after I came out of sergeant of the guard, for whatever reason, my OIC took interest in me and saw, I guess, potential. He wanted me to further pursue trying to be more proficient behind the firearm and become a sniper. He was like, John, I think you have the propensity to be a sniper. I think you can actually do it with the way that I see you exercise your fundamentals. I was an expert high shooter for the previous 5 years. So I've always loved shooting. And it just came kind of natural to me. So literally right before I was getting ready to prep to go to sniper school on Hanson, I broke my leg in half.
Doing what? Did you fall to Humvee? Were you
football of all?
Oh, were you?
I was playing football and broke my femur across the mid shaft. Had to get medevac out of Okinawa, and then I ended up here in Quantico. I ended up at Quantico.
Okay. I'm just wondering, is this something you think about all the time? That like, if I didn't do this one thing differently, my life trajectory would have been entirely different.
Absolutely, because there's so many other things that happened after I arrived here to Quantico in the DC area. Obviously, I'm opened up and expanded to so much more opportunity, both on the military side and on the civilian side, because I mean, this place is just like crawling with opportunity. So when I get here, my mindset changed. But yes, oftentimes I think back to what would that have looked like had I actually went through with going to sniper school? Would I still be in the Marine Corps? Sure. Would I have deployed more? Who knows? Like the what ifs are absolutely endless, because in that moment in time, I really was dedicated and ready to make that move. I was 24 23, 24 years old. So still impressionable. And when somebody offers you something and they think you're kind of badass, it's like, yeah, you're going to run with that. You know, that's all that 23, 24-year-old testosterone talking at that point.
Well, but that's what I love the military and the Marine Corps, especially if you're going in that sniper pipeline. It's performance based, so it's reaffirmation that, hey man, I'm kicking ass, I'm tearing it up.
It's true,
and they're recognizing it, which that is still should be that in the military, which I believe it is in certain units. But that's what I loved about the military. It was always performance based.
Yeah,
it was never. Until you became an officer, maybe down the line, getting 05, 06 areas. But when you're a young private or you're in the sergeant enlisted area, if you get recognized like that, man, it's like, holy shit, I'm kicking ass. Let's continue on. So when you broke your leg and then went to Quantico, what'd you do? What'd they have you doing? I mean,
I was working as special purpose MAGTF experimental.
Okay, tell me what that is.
Exactly. I still got the badge for that because it's just such a cool badge and nobody knows what that place is. So it's literally all of the experimental weapons that the Marine Corps was either developing or testing came.
So you got to test R&D. Your R&D, it's R&D.
Basically R&D, right? Okay, right. And before you even ask, the most interesting firearm that I saw there was called the corner shot. Have you ever heard of the corner shot?
The one I remember, that one where you could bend it. It was like a Glock. It was a 9mm. Glock.
Yep.
But it had the build and it had a little flip so you could come around here. But the optics were set up that you could look down and yeah, I remember that. What happened? You know what? It kind of just disappeared.
It just went away. Who knows
what happened?
Who knows where they're using the corner shot, sir?
Was it worth it? I mean, I saw it. It looked cool, but I mean, also it reminds me of Wanted with Angelina Jolie and bending bullets and all. I was like, that can't be.
So the thing is it actually bends the gun.
It bends the gun.
Yeah. So it's in kind of like I wouldn't even call it an AR platform housing. It was more like one of those Ronies, you know, yeah. It was more like that, but extended to the front, obviously. So that way, when you put the front half of that contraption out past the wall and you hit the button and then it flips. So the whole gun goes to the side, but then there's a camera looking through the optic and the camera is on the back end of that contraption. So you're looking at the camera through the optic.
Could you, be honest, was it worth a shit? Did you shoot it at all? Was it accurate?
I didn't shoot it.
Oh.
And to be honest with you, just the mechanics of it was strange to me because of just what I know about recoil right now.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so how does that work when you have something standing out here and then it's going to do this, and you have no leverage? Where's your leverage?
Yeah, I really wish I never got to shoot one of those. I do remember those, but I was wondering the same thing. Well, that's cool. How'd you feel, and what was going through your head when you're there? You're nursing your leg. It sounds like you're still in a pretty cool position. You're not in Japan.
I was, without question. And I think it was, again, more about my maturation and evolution as a human being at that time, because I was going through something that kind of reset my trajectory, so to speak.
Sure.
And to be honest with you, that was the beginning of the end of my career, because first off, they put a rod in my leg that was about a quarter of an inch too long. So I was walking unevenly for the first year. So I fully rehabbed into this limping position until they realized that the rod was too long. So then they had to go back in, break the leg again, irritate the thing, put in the new rod that fit properly. And now to this day, I still feel like my leg, like the bottom half of my leg might be turned a little bit, just because I'm like, I don't know. For them to make such a grave error the first time, I don't put anything past anything after that.
All right, that was John Keys. If you want to dig back and listen to that full episode, that is episode 142. This next one is the most recent of the appearances that we're going to play here. This is a shorter excerpt, but I have to play it. It was from our friend Kirk Spradley, who I cannot thank enough, and KG Spradley, which is the book where the book will be coming out as author named KG Spradley. I cannot thank him enough for taking the trip all the way to New York City to do it in studio. We've only done one other in studio since then, and I love doing the shows in studio. I know I've promised you guys that we'll do more of them. And we really have not, I haven't delivered on that. It's just been who's been around and that type of thing. But we will. The second half of 2024, I'm going to make my best effort to do some more in-studio stuff. But anyway, this crazy fucking story that Kirk tells is our biggest short on, our most viewed short on the YouTube page. And so I was like, I got to include this. It's an insane story. We're going to wrap it up with this. This is Kirk Spradley, the most recent of the appearances on here from episode 220. And we're going to end it strong with this. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode.
Well, on day 2, I think it was. Well, on day 1, almost got in a fight with a former French Army guy. He was a big bodybuilder, and he just kept running his mouth. And I was like, hey, if I get in trouble because you're fucking talking loud, I'm going to beat your fucking ass. And he looked at me, and he was big, jacked up dude. I was about $150.
Do you think they were on like steroids at the time? Were they checking for that? Or?
It's very likely. But this guy's like, I was in the French Army. This won't be anything for me. He quit like 5 days later. But yeah, whatever. Not to stereotype the French, but we lost one of our drill instructors on day 2 or 3. He dislocated a kid's shoulder during the training. And the kid's dad was a drill instructor in one of the other companies. So it was this big mess, man, And they had just had a fight in the chow hall over man, I know this sounds crazy, man, but you just gotta figure you're in survival mode in that place. And these kids were like a week or 2 from graduation, and they got in a fight over a donut, and a guy literally killed a dude over a donut. Man, he just fucking beat him so bad. He went unconscious, and then he succumbed to his wounds after like a week. So, again, I had no desire to be in the Marines, and here I am in the Marines, and I'm like, this is the fucking French Foreign Legion, bro. This is prison. This ain't the Marines, But which is funny because we had a Foreign Legion guy there. He was in my company. He wasn't in my platoon. He was an interesting guy, and I wish I could remember his name. A thinner guy. He looked like a normal person, man. He did not look like a bad dude. And they're like, "Oh, that's so and so. He's in the Foreign Legion." And I'm like, "That guy." He had been a lieutenant in the Army National Guard. He went to Ranger School and Airborne School, and he was trying to go on active duty. And in the early 90s or 80s, they didn't have that option for the guy. Yeah. So he finished up his tour in the Guard, and he joined the Foreign Legion, and he spent 6 years with what they call the second rep, which is like their elite unit. So he did 4 years in the Army National Guard, Ranger School, all this stuff, went to the Foreign Legion, and then he was like, well, I'm an American. I want to go back to America. So he joined the Marines, and he was a meritorious corporal coming out of boot camp. And so at infantry school, as you're going through infantry school, he's a corporal. So he's the same rank as some of the instructors, but look at the guy's background. But again, he didn't look like a bad dude. And that was kind of, as an 18-year-old looking at this, like you learn a lot. Like the big French Army guy, my first impression was this is a bad dude. And then you see him quit 5 days later. And then you see this normal looking guy who just sees you and in normal conversation, it's just, hey man, how's it going? Hey, good, man. And it's like, man, that's one of the baddest dudes you've ever met in your life at 18 years old. And so the normal guy winds up being the badass dude, and the chest beater winds up being the candy ass. So
I feel like this is, you hear this all the time. I mean, we're like recently we had Ashley Albright on, and she was talking about like the guys who look like these tough macho dudes are the ones to tap out. And yeah, it seems like that's a recurring theme. It's not always the guy who looks like the movie star made to play a Marine.
That's right. So that was kind of a big learning process. Those are some of my biggest takeaways at boot camp, at Marine boot camp.
That's all for this episode of Battleline Podcast. But we're always posting new content on social media. Follow us on Instagram at Battleline Podcast and on Twitter at Battleline Pod. That's an order. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes up every Tuesday. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. Believe in yourself. Face all challenges head on. And as always, never quit.